For decades, millions knew the voice, the songs, and the success of the Carpenters. Behind the chart-topping hits stood two siblings whose bond shaped one of the most beloved music acts in history. But fame brought pressures few people could see. Now, at 78 years old, Richard Carpenter is reflecting on the journey he shared with his sister Karen, revealing memories filled with love, regret, triumph, and heartbreak. After all these years, what truth has he finally chosen to share? The brother and sister who found their sound. Long before the sold-out concerts, gold records, and worldwide fame, Richard and Karen Carpenter were simply two siblings who shared a love for music. Their story began in New Haven, Connecticut, where Richard Lynn Carpenter was born on October 15, 1946. Nearly 4 years later, his younger sister Karen and Carpenter arrived on March 2, 1950. From the beginning, the two children were very different. Richard was quiet, thoughtful, and deeply interested in music. Karen was energetic, funny, and full of life. Their parents quickly noticed Richard's unusual talent. While other children spent hours playing outside, Richard could often be found sitting at a piano. Music seemed to come naturally to him. He learned quickly and developed an ear for melodies at a very young age. As the years passed, Richard's passion only grew stronger. In 1963, the Carpenter family made a major decision. They left Connecticut and moved across the country to Downey, California. The move would change the family's future in ways nobody could imagine. California exposed Richard to a wider musical world. He studied music seriously and spent countless hours practicing piano. His dream was becoming clearer. He wanted a career in music. Meanwhile, Karen was developing talents of her own. At first, few people imagined she would become one of the most recognizable voices in popular music. Surprisingly, Karen's earliest musical passion was not singing. She became interested in playing drums and quickly showed remarkable skill. Friends and family were amazed. In an era when female drummers were rare, Karen displayed confidence and natural rhythm. During school performances, audiences often watched in surprise as she played with precision and energy. But another gift was slowly emerging. As Karen occasionally sang during rehearsals and performances, Richard began to notice something special. Her voice was warm, rich, and instantly recognizable. It carried emotion without effort. There was a natural honesty in the way she sang. Richard recognized that gift long before the rest of the world. While others focused on Karen's drumming, Richard saw the potential of her voice. He encouraged her to sing more often. Over time, the siblings began combining Richard's musical arrangements with Karen's vocals. The results were remarkable. Together, they created a sound that felt different from many of the popular acts of the 1960s. Their music was melodic, gentle, and deeply emotional. It relied on strong musicianship rather than flashy performances. However, success did not arrive overnight. Like many aspiring artists, the siblings faced disappointment. They performed in small venues, entered talent competitions, and searched for opportunities wherever they could find them. Every step forward seemed to come with new obstacles. Richard formed musical groups and experimented with different styles. Karen performed alongside him, continuing to improve both as a singer and musician. The pair worked tirelessly, often spending long hours rehearsing songs and refining arrangements. Their dedication never wavered. In 1966, Richard, Karen, and friend Wes Jacobs formed the Richard Carpenter Trio. The group entered the famous Battle of the Bands competition at the Hollywood Bowl. Against strong competition, they won. The victory felt like a breakthrough. For the first time, industry professionals began paying attention. Record executives noticed the siblings' talent. Doors that once seemed closed began to open. Yet the road remained uncertain. The music industry was changing rapidly during the late 1960s. Rock music dominated the charts. Psychedelic sounds were becoming popular. The Carpenters' softer style did not fit easily into current trends. Some executives simply did not understand what Richard and Karen were trying to create. Record labels passed on opportunities. Meetings ended without contracts. Promising conversations often led nowhere. Many young artists might have given up. But Richard believed in the music. More importantly, he believed in Karen. The bond between brother and sister became their greatest strength. They trusted each other completely. Richard knew Karen could bring life to any song. Karen trusted Richard's musical instincts and arrangements. That trust allowed them to continue moving forward when success seemed distant. As the years passed, their sound became more polished. Richard's skills as an arranger continued to grow. Karen's voice became stronger and more expressive. Together they were developing a musical identity that would eventually captivate millions. At home, the family remained supportive. Their parents watched as the siblings devoted themselves to their dream. Music was no longer just a hobby. It was becoming their future. By the end of the decade, persistence finally began to pay off. The Carpenters were attracting attention from people who could help launch their careers. Industry professionals were beginning to recognize what Richard had known for years, that Karen possessed a truly extraordinary voice. The years of practice, sacrifice, and rejection had not been wasted. The brother and sister who once dreamed of making music together were standing on the edge of something much bigger than they had ever imagined. A new chapter was about to begin. Fame, success, and worldwide recognition were closer than ever before. But with opportunity would come pressures neither of them could yet see. Their dream was finally within reach, but neither sibling could have predicted how quickly everything was about to change. When the world fell in love with Karen. By the end of the 1960s, years of persistence were finally beginning to pay off for Richard and Karen Carpenter. The brother and sister duo had spent countless hours perfecting their sound. They had survived rejection, uncertainty, and the constant struggle faced by young musicians trying to break into the industry. Now, opportunity was knocking. In 1969, the siblings signed with A&M Records, a major turning point in their journey. The label's co-founder, Herb Alpert, saw something special in the pair. While many industry executives had overlooked them, Alpert believed their unique style deserved a chance. It was a decision that would change music history. Soon after signing, the Carpenters released their album Close to You. Few could have predicted what would happen next. The title track, They Long to Be Close to You, became a massive success. Radio stations across America played the song repeatedly. Listeners instantly connected with Karen's gentle voice and Richard's polished arrangements. Almost overnight, the Carpenters became stars. As the song climbed the charts in 1970, audiences everywhere began discovering the duo. Their music felt different from much of what dominated popular culture at the time. While many artists embraced louder and more experimental sounds, the Carpenters offered warmth, simplicity, and emotion. People listened. Families played their records at home. Young couples danced to their songs. Radio audiences requested them again and again. The success continued. Hit after hit followed. Songs such as We've Only Just Begun, Rainy Days and Mondays, and Superstar helped establish the Carpenters as one of the most successful musical acts of the decade. Karen's voice became the group's signature. There was something unforgettable about it. Smooth yet powerful. Gentle yet deeply emotional. She could sing the simplest line and make it feel personal. Around the world, fans fell in love with her voice. Meanwhile, Richard remained the creative force behind much of the music. He arranged songs, managed recordings, and carefully shaped the sound that audiences had come to recognize instantly. Together, the siblings formed a remarkable partnership. One provided the voice. The other provided the musical architecture. Neither could have achieved the same success alone. As their popularity grew, so did their responsibilities. The Carpenters were suddenly everywhere. Television appearances became common. Concert schedules expanded. Interviews filled their calendars. Their lives moved at a relentless pace. One day they were recording in Los Angeles. The next they were performing before thousands of fans in another city. Soon, international tours added even more pressure. The crowds grew larger. The applause grew louder. And the expectations became heavier. From the audience's perspective, everything seemed perfect. Television viewers saw smiling faces. Magazine covers celebrated their success. Award nominations and record sales continued to increase. But life behind the scenes was often far more demanding than people realized. Richard worked tirelessly. Perfection mattered to him. Every recording session required careful attention. Every arrangement needed to meet his high standards. The responsibility of maintaining the Carpenters' reputation weighed heavily on his shoulders. Karen faced pressures of her own. As the public face of the group, she attracted enormous attention. Fans admired her voice, her personality, and her stage presence. Journalists wrote about her appearance as frequently as they discussed her music. The scrutiny never seemed to stop. At concerts, audiences watched every movement. In photographs, every detail was examined. As fame increased, privacy became increasingly difficult to maintain. Still, Karen remained dedicated to the music. Night after night, she stepped onto stages around the world and delivered performances that captivated audiences. Her voice remained steady and beautiful, even as the demands of fame intensified. Many fans believed the Carpenters were living a dream. In many ways, they were. The duo had achieved goals that once seemed impossible. They had become international stars. Their records sold millions of copies. Their music crossed generations and cultural boundaries. Yet success often carries hidden costs. The pressure to remain successful can be just as difficult as the struggle to become successful in the first place. As the 1970s continued, subtle changes began appearing beneath the surface. Long schedules created exhaustion. Constant travel became draining. The emotional demands of fame slowly accumulated. To the public, the Carpenters still appeared unstoppable. Their songs continued topping charts. Their concerts continued selling out. Their future seemed brighter than ever. But behind closed doors, challenges were beginning to emerge that few outsiders could fully understand. The spotlight that had brought them success was also creating pressures that neither Richard nor Karen had been prepared for. And while fans celebrated every new achievement, an invisible battle was quietly taking shape. A battle that would eventually change everything. While fans celebrated every new hit, a private struggle was quietly growing stronger behind closed doors. The pain no one fully understood. By the mid-1970s, the Carpenters stood among the most successful musical acts in the world. Their records continued to sell in huge numbers. Their concerts attracted devoted audiences across continents. Karen Carpenter's voice remained one of the most recognizable sounds on radio. From the outside, it appeared that everything was going exactly as planned. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind the sold-out shows and chart-topping hits, Karen was facing a struggle that very few people truly understood. The pressures of fame had been building for years. Constant touring, endless recording sessions, media attention, and public expectations created an environment that was difficult to escape. Every performance demanded perfection. Every appearance placed her under scrutiny. At a time when conversations about mental and physical health were far less common than they are today, many warning signs went unnoticed. Karen had always been dedicated to her work. She wanted to give audiences her very best. She cared deeply about the music and the fans who supported it. But over time, concerns about her appearance began to grow. Comments from critics and media outlets affected her more than many people realized. The entertainment industry often focused on image as much as talent. Articles discussed performers' appearances in detail. Television cameras magnified insecurities. For Karen, those pressures became increasingly difficult to ignore. As the years passed, family members, friends, and colleagues began noticing changes. There were moments when she appeared tired. There were times when her health seemed fragile. Yet she continued working. The show always went on. Richard watched these developments with growing concern. As her older brother, he had known Karen longer than anyone in the music industry. He remembered the energetic young drummer who loved music and laughter. He remembered the sister who had shared countless hours rehearsing songs and dreaming about the future. Now he found himself watching someone he loved struggle in ways he could not fully control. The situation was heartbreaking. Richard was also dealing with pressures of his own. Years of non-stop work had taken a toll on him as well. The demands of maintaining the Carpenters' success were enormous. Recording sessions, Business decisions, touring schedules, and creative responsibilities created constant stress. The siblings were carrying heavy burdens, yet they continued moving forward. Fans attending concerts often had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. They heard the beautiful harmonies. They saw the smiling faces. They witnessed professional performances delivered with remarkable consistency. What they could not see were the private battles taking place away from the spotlight. As Karen's health concerns became more serious, those closest to her searched for ways to help. Family members worried. Friends offered support. Medical professionals became increasingly involved. However, understanding of eating disorders during that era was limited. Many people simply did not recognize the seriousness of the condition. As a result, solutions were not always clear. Karen herself wanted to get better. There were periods of hope. Moments when improvement seemed possible. Times when loved ones believed recovery might finally be within reach. But progress was often followed by setbacks. The cycle became emotionally exhausting for everyone involved. Richard later reflected on those years with a mixture of sadness and frustration. Looking back, he understood how complex the situation had been. At the time, however, many decisions had to be made without the knowledge available today. The family did everything they could, but some battles are far more complicated than they first appear. Meanwhile, the public remained largely unaware of the full reality. The Carpenters continued releasing music. New projects moved forward. Professional obligations continued. Yet beneath every performance was an increasing sense of uncertainty. As the audience watched Karen sing, few understood the strength it often took simply to stand on stage. Her voice remained beautiful. Her performances remained memorable. But the struggle behind those performances was growing more serious. By the early 1980s, concern among those closest to her had reached a new level. There was still hope. There was still determination. There was still belief that better days could come. Family members wanted to see Karen healthy and happy again. Richard wanted his sister back. Not the famous singer. Not the international star. Simply the sister he had grown up with. The one who laughed during rehearsals. The one who shared dreams of making music. The one who had helped build an extraordinary career from almost nothing. As months passed, signs of recovery seemed encouraging at times. Loved ones desperately held on to those moments. They wanted to believe the worst was behind them, yet the situation remained fragile. No one could know how little time remained. The years of success, pressure, and struggle had brought the family to a painful crossroads. And then, in 1983, everything changed. A moment arrived that would leave Richard, the Carpenter family, and millions of fans around the world in shock. The tragedy that followed would become one of the most heartbreaking stories in music history. Then came the moment that would forever divide Richard's life into before and after. The day everything changed forever. On February 4th, 1983, the world received news that seemed impossible to believe. Karen Carpenter was gone. She was only 32 years old. For millions of fans around the world, the announcement came as a shock. The woman whose voice had comforted listeners through countless songs had died far too young. Newspapers quickly carried the story. Television broadcasts